Charlie Munger said it better than I ever will. In 1989, it said in one of the letters, this is his quote, "It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid. Just show up." Consistency beats intensity every single day of the week. And it's a constant journey, struggle, just to keep the confidence level up in today's world. Every headline you look at makes you feel behind.
Lift off. Go get it.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Trade Stock. It's weekly update number 61, and we've got a lot to cover. So what we're going to talk about today are four main topics. Number one, we're talking about a new custom MCP we've built with Claude that is giving me access to some crazy cool data. We're going to talk about robotic mowers and why it was not something that started 2 or 3 years ago, but has been on the radar for over 30 years for this one individual, at least. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in AI and why it might be actually your biggest distraction away from making your company profitable and achieving your goals. Okay, let's dive in. So I want to start here, actually. I was using Gemini to look through my Gmail over the last 10 years. I was looking for inspiration around strategic planning because I'm focused on that at a deep level right now. And I was looking back on stuff that I created back in 2015 with Jonathan Goldhill. We were just building the K&D vision, and I was taking it over as CEO for my parents. I came across some of the coaching programs and agendas I filled out and KPIs I filled out, and it just like reminded me of how far we've come. And we didn't just explode overnight, and it wasn't this crazy growth thing that just happened one day. It was literally going in every day and trying to be a little better, just 1 degree improvement into the direction we want to go in, which is for us to raise the bar in the landscape industry, and just do that every single day. And then do that every week. Review our key performance indicators. We were tracking gross profit per employee. We were tracking accounts receivable past due days. We were tracking labor variance and labor efficiency ratios and closed pipeline and hot and cold pipeline. We had all these KPIs all the way back in 2015, guys, when we were doing $1 million or $2 million in revenue. And we have continued to measure those key performance indicators every single week without fail for going on 11 years now. We have held a quarterly planning session every 90 days for 11 years now. We have not missed a planning session. And when I say planning session, I don't just mean a meeting. I mean the entire company meets, our divisions individually meet, and our leadership team individually meets, often for 2 days. And we have done this every 90 days for 11 years now. Every single week we meet to review the goals that we set in that 90-day meeting. And as long as we follow the plan and we check the list off, amazing things start to show up in our life and in our business. Now, it's not all perfect, and it's not this perfect up into the right growth curve, because the output is going to be messy. The output is going to be affected by external factors, economy, labor challenges, inflation, all different kinds of things. Now, technology and artificial intelligence. You cannot control the output, and most people focus on short-term durations of time, and they never really focus on that long term. And I think this is actually what's so important. Charlie Munger, I'm going to quote Charlie Munger here. Charlie Munger said it better than I ever will. In 1989, he wrote a letter. It said in one of the letters, this is his quote, "It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid, instead of trying to be very intelligent." Consistently not stupid. You guys, we don't have to solve all the problems of the world today. You don't have to be a perfect leader, CEO, or owner of a business. You just need to keep going and try to be consistently not stupid. This reminds me of a quote from Bob Grover that says, just don't suck at the landscaping. As long as you can be consistently not stupid in your decision making, and I will just like contextualize that into doing what you say you're going to do, honoring your commitments, showing up and giving your best effort as much as possible, and being consistent about what you do. And as long as we go out there and we don't suck at the landscaping, which is a low bar to achieve, but it's not the day-to-day excellence that makes companies excellent. It is an extended period of time of not doing dumb things and not sucking. Like, it's that simple, because most people will do great things for a short period of time, maybe even a year or two. And you've probably seen this with your competition in your market. Now, we don't pay a lot of attention to our competition, but, I'm sure I've seen this, where you see a company make a big push for a year or 2 or 3 years, often with a new leader. That leader burns out. That leader leaves. They go back to their basic level they started at. That is the worst thing you can do ever, ever, ever for a team, is the regression. That is terrible. But if you can continue to do the best work you possibly can do, which isn't always amazing, which isn't always like amazing high level work, you don't have to be perfect all the time. So your best doesn't have to be perfect. All right. Just show up. Consistency beats intensity every single day of the week. I said that last week on the weekly update. So as I'm going through this, I wanted to compare, this period of time. And I didn't want to just look at our financial data. I want to look at as much data as possible. So I started to dig in and utilize a new MCP, custom MCP that Sean set up for us. Basically, what we did is we took all of our Aspire data and we dumped it and indexed it and normalized it into a database. We then created a custom MCP with dozens, I don't know, maybe 100 tools. Sean built it and connected that to Claude. So now Claude is, and I'll also say we created a custom skill to help filter the data coming out of that database so Claude can actually have context on what you're trying to ask. So for example, if you're asking for sales closed in the last 90 days for an account manager or a business developer, you want to know what the sales were that were renewed versus not renewed. But in Aspire, it just shows as one data. So you have to create the custom context layer, basically, or intelligence layer to differentiate between those two. So with this Aspire and Claude and Supabase combination, I'm able to build some really cool, amazing stuff. I'm able to actually slice and dice our data by job, by crew, by hour, and I can see the actual data on the job site, and we can see trends before they become an issue. So this type of context now that we have into our data is a completely new unlock. Like, we're seeing some really cool things with AI, which leads me into actually a bit of a controversial statement I heard recently. It was a statement made by a good friend of mine, Jeff Harkness, when he was meeting with Weathermatic's Lex Mason and Peak Landscaping Mark Pyra. Mark, Jeff, and Lex were having an amazing conversation about artificial intelligence. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. It's on the Weathermatic website. And Jeff kind of shared this opinion, or I'll paraphrase for you guys, basically that AI is becoming a massive distraction for CEOs. And I immediately was like, I don't know if I agree with that. But then I started to think about it more, and I actually couldn't agree more with that. I think AI is way more of a distraction today than it is a benefit to the majority of CEOs out there. That's because what I just explained to you between the Aspire and Supabase and Claude integration and what we built there, the team built there, that is a A-tier level, S-tier level build that happened internally at K&D. Now, the problem I think Jeff is speaking to and that I see is most of those builds are being done by the CEO of the company. Most AI implementation, success, experimentation is being done by the CEO. And this is what we really have to start to understand and unpack. When you're a CEO, the value that you can create within a company is infinite, in my opinion. Maybe not infinite, there's always a limit, but it's just exponentially higher than almost anyone else in the company because of your title and your leadership. So when you spend time, this is going back to Dan Martell, buy back your time. When you spend time doing jobs that are not CEO quality jobs, you are stealing money from the business. And while AI is an incredibly important part of what we need to be building as CEOs, it is not always the best use of our time. Now, as you're listening to this, you may feel like I'm contradicting previous episodes on the weekly update, which maybe I am, honestly, because I'm probably one of the most experimental CEOs out there, but I have installed a team to do a lot of the day-to-day stuff so I can work on high-level strategy. But everything I'm doing with AI as it relates to K&D landscaping is targeted directly towards raising the bar and getting us close to $100,000 minimum wage. See, we have a North Star. When Jeff Harkness was on the podcast or the webinar talking, he was talking about increasing EBITDA, increasing the value of your company, increasing enterprise value. Now, that is an incredibly high level responsibility I have as CEO, is to do those things. But that's not our core mission today. While one of our milestones of Q3 in K&D Landscaping is to attain our EBITDA budgeted metric and to be a high profit company, I will trade profitability for a $100,000 wage. So if we need to reduce our adjusted EBITDA down from 14 or 15% to 8 or 9% to give everybody a raise that gets us closer to a $100,000 minimum wage, that's what we're going to do because that's our mission. That's our North Star. That's what we're on. If you're a platform business or you're going to raise money or anything else, especially if you're backed by private equity, I mean, at the end of the day, your focus is EBITDA. Unless there's been a consensus agreement that you have a different North Star. But I would say 99% of the platforms out there, it's EBITDA growth, quarter over quarter, year over year. And it's attaining the largest recap possible for the shareholders. That is the fiduciary responsibility of the CEO in those situations. So if you're listening to this podcast and you are a CEO, you need to go through your own context layer, go through your own intelligence layer on what I'm sharing, because what we're doing at K&D might not be right for a platform company. We're investing a lot of our money back into our technology. Is it a distraction? Yeah, actually, I think it is. It's detracting from our profitability. If we turned down the AI and technology spigot at K&D Landscaping, our profitability would go up. It would. But let me tie this all the way back to the beginning of the episode. In 2015, when we were meeting every single week, when we had our quarterly planning sessions, the profitability and the revenue didn't show up. We didn't turn into a $25 million company overnight. It took us 11 years to get there. But the things we were doing every week and every 90 days, while they may have actually detracted from short-term profitability because we were spending money on going on a retreat and spending money on traveling and all this kind of thing, we were most definitely reducing our profit margin in the short term. But the long-term gain on that is impossible to measure in the current moment. You just have to have faith that you're climbing the right mountain, that you're moving in the right direction. So our goal, right, is a $100,000 minimum wage. We also want to do that at scale. We want to be $1 billion company by 2035. We want to distribute $150 million of employee equity between now and 2035. And we want to go public at 2035. And I have talked to a lot of people about what's going to happen with all these big recaps as companies approach the 10-figure revenue number and approach 50 to 100 million in EBITDA. Who's the next buyer? Now, I believe there's a whole class of investors that are ready to invest in those companies, but I do worry about the concentration of wealth in a large cap entity like a Brightview. I worry about what one or two investors will do with that big of a company when you have such a large employee base that should, and I think for the betterment of the company and the shareholders, have a voice, have a big voice. So that's where our IPO model is our North Star because we believe that when our employees have a voice, we can be a better business. So depending on your goals, depending on where you're trying to get to with your business, this is what's going to dictate how much of a distraction you allow AI to be. And if you are just tapping away on AI and experimenting with Claude Code and building MCPs and doing all this freaking awesome stuff, but your business is struggling for CEO responsibility, you have a duty to uphold that. And I will tell you guys, I am definitely in the gray area. I am actually really glad I have a microphone and a distribution channel to share my experience, because I don't know if everyone should follow me or our team down this path. We are potentially going down a path that can lead to a very bad ending. I don't think it is, because otherwise we wouldn't be going down that path. But look, the future is unknown. What happens over the next 5 years is anyone's guess. You hear all the crazy predictions. So just make sure you're being true to yourself. You're honoring your commitments and you're doing what you believe in, no matter who you're listening to out there. Now, I want to tell you guys a quick story because I think this ties into exactly what we're talking about today. If you have been in the landscape industry for a while, you may feel like Kress, owned by Positech, is a newcomer, which it is, but it's not a newcomer in the sense of innovation and equipment manufacturing. And if you listen to this weekly update, you know that Kress is a partner here on the weekly update, and they power this show every week. Thank you, Kress. But I want to talk to you guys about Don Gao, who back in 1994 started as a contract manufacturer, building tools for other people's brands. Black & Decker, Sears, and many others. He even has a story about shipping 700,000 angle grinders on a single order. This is someone who was able to see a need in the market and fill that need. And he always thought big from the very beginning. Black & Decker pulled that work in-house, and Don Gao made the decision that changed everything. Around 2004, he stopped building other people's products and started building his own. That became Works. Then Rockwell in 2007. Then the German brand Kress joined the group in 2017. And the whole time, quietly, he was chasing one idea: take the gas engine and the operator out of the equation. Battery first, autonomous second. And he set out to make the most powerful, durable, and true gas replacement in the electric industry. He started with cordless walk-behinds. Like, think about a cordless walk-behind mower that no one wanted to use back in the day because it just didn't have the power. Then they started to move into robotics with a boundary wire. Then they attacked the boundary wire itself and tried to remove that from the picture, which later became RTK and satellite positioning network. So the machine knows where it is down to the centimeter on every property. And last year was a big year. Positech raised a huge round from outside equity investors. First time they ever did that. They raised $250 million. And in October of 2025, Kress rolled out the Voyager. I got to be on stage to share that about a year ago, and it was a pretty amazing moment. The Voyager now has a 60-inch model that's coming to market this fall, maybe sooner. Stay tuned. And you can just see the development and progression of this amazing company. So when people see the industry and they feel like autonomous mowing just came out of nowhere, the truth is Don Gao and many others have been obsessed with this topic since the 90s. They've been trying to figure this out for over 30 years. And it ties into the segment. It ties into this weekly update perfectly, because I talked all about consistency over a long period of time. Don Gao and Positech and Kress did not create an overnight success. They have worked, and he has worked for decades to create a solution to the gas problem we have. Now, has the industry blockaded those solutions over time? For sure. Is there a stigma in the landscape industry about going electric? For sure. Like, I can tell you guys personally how many people just like look down on us and, oh, they're just a liberal California company. Like, if anyone knows us, you guys know what we're about at K&D Landscaping. We're just about raising the bar. We don't care what idea is looked at in what way. We just want to make the best decisions for our company possible in the long term. That's why the electric switch probably wasn't the best idea for short-term profitability, although it did help. And it's helping today, especially with gas prices through the roof. Thank you, Kress. And I think it's important to sit with that is the success of Kress and the success of what they've done and the success of the Voyager and the autonomous robot like platform they're building is about consistency over a long period of time. Companies that are just now getting to autonomous and just now building robotics and just now experimenting with that have 20 years of time to make up. And they can make that up because you can see the compression of acceleration of technology. And you can see the basically infinite curve of increase of time where change is going to happen way faster. But nothing can replace consistency over the long term. This is just the biggest message, guys. I feel like this is like a 2-week message that we're going on. I just feel like so many people are looking for the short-term wins. And when you don't get them, you emotionally drop. Your energy drops. Your team sees it. You're mopey around the office because your profits aren't up this month or this year. We are celebrating 40 years in business at K&D. I don't know how many years you've been doing it, but it's probably a lot. If I'm going to take a poll of the audience, you've probably been doing the landscape thing for over 10 years. And I know there's a lot of other people that have been listening for or doing work for a less amount of time, but I'm going to tell you guys, you have to just keep at it. And if you can improve the actions and behaviors you do every single week, those will start to compound in ways you can never imagine. That's why I wanted to share that whole story from 2015. That's why I wanted to talk about Don Gow and the Kress and Positech story. That's why I wanted to share what Jeff Harkness said about AI being a distraction for the majority of CEOs out there. And I agree with him. We got to be careful, guys. We got to guard our time. Dan Martell, buy back your time. The last thing I'll say as we wrap up our weekly update is just be kind to yourself, because right now there is an endless amount of people telling you that you are behind. I want to really just shout out Leanscaper, Mark Bradley, and his whole team, because this week they really sent that message to say, you know, you're not falling behind. And it's a constant journey, struggle, just to keep the confidence level up in today's world. Every headline you look at makes you feel behind. So just don't let the noise get to you. Know that you're running your own race. Be true to who you are. Make sure you have that North Star. If you don't have that identified, let's get that on paper. Let's get that in front of people. If you're in the disruptors, share that in the chat. I know a lot of you guys already have, and I can see the traction when people share things in the disruptors saying like, I'm going to be a $10 million company in 3 years. And you share that to 100 landscapers. That's pretty cool. So get out there, keep winning, keep doing you. And I'll see you guys right here next week on the weekly update. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.